Much has been said about the lessons of Vietnam. What do you see as the lessons of Iraq?
I think the lessons of Iraq are very clear, that you cannot have a failed strategy that will then cause you to nearly lose a conflict. Our initial military success, we went into Baghdad and everybody celebrated. And then the war was very badly mishandled. I went to Iraq in 2003 and came back and said, we've got to change this strategy. This strategy requires additional troops. It requires a fundamental change in strategy, and I fought for it. And finally, we came up with a great general and a strategy that has succeeded. This strategy has succeeded, and we are winning in Iraq. And we will come home with victory and with honor. And that withdrawal is the result of every counterinsurgency that succeeds. And I want to tell you that now that we will succeed and our troops will come home and not in defeat, that we will see a stable ally in the region and a fledgling democracy. The consequences of defeat would have been increased Iranian influence. It would have been increase in sectarian violence. It would have been a wider war, which the United States of America might have had to come back. So there was a lot at stake there. And thanks to this great General David Petraeus and the troops who serve under him, they have succeeded. And we are winning in Iraq, and we will come home. And we will come home as we have when we have won other wars and not in defeat.
2 minutes for how you see the lessons of Iraq, Senator Obama.
Well, this is an area where Senator McCain and I have a fundamental difference, because I think the first question is whether we should have gone into the war in the first place. 6 years ago, I stood up and opposed this war at a time when it was politically risky to do so, because I said that not only did we not know how much it was going to cost, what our exit strategy might be, how it would affect our relationships around the world, and whether our intelligence was sound, but also because we hadn't finished the job in Afghanistan. We hadn't caught bin Laden. We hadn't put al-Qaeda to rest. And as a consequence, I thought that it was going to be a distraction. Now, Senator McCain and President Bush had a very different judgment. And I wish I had been wrong for the sake of the country and they had been right. But that's not the case. We've spent over $600 billion so far, soon to be $1 trillion. We have lost over 4,000 lives. We have seen 30,000 wounded. And most importantly, from a strategic national security perspective, al-Qaeda is resurgent, stronger now than at any time since 2001. We took our eye off the ball. And not to mention that we are still spending $10 billion a month when they have a $79 billion surplus. At a time when we are in great distress here at home, and we just talked about the fact that our budget is way overstretched, and we are borrowing money from overseas to try to finance just some of the basic functions of our government. So I think the lesson to be drawn is that we should never hesitate to use military force, and I will not, as president, in order to keep the American people safe. But we have to use our military wisely, and we did not use our military wisely in Iraq.
I think the biggest lesson from our experience in Iraq is that war is never the answer. War is not the answer. War is not an acceptable energy policy. Illegal and immoral war is not worthy of the people of our country, not reflective of their values, and should never be our policy. We should never have engaged in war and occupation in Iraq. We should not expand war and occupation to Afghanistan. We should leave the territorial integrity of Pakistan. We should never intrude or use proxy troops to intrude in, for example, other countries like Somalia. We should not use Ethiopia as a rendition destination solely for the purpose of torturing, oftentimes, innocent people. The people of the United States have an opportunity to vote their values, just like people in India and Spain had the opportunity to vote their values in the midst of crisis. They chose to reject the warmongers and to put into position leaders who represented peace. And so therefore, the Aznar government in Spain was rejected in favor of the government of Zapatero, that same government that gave us justice for Pinochet, that gave us justice for the victims of genocide in the Great Lakes of Africa, that have given us justice. And so therefore, when we have the opportunity to vote our values, we can actually get leadership that reflects our values. We can actually get public policy that reflects our values. And the reason that the Democratic leadership and the Republican leadership have to dance around the issues and not answer the questions is because they want to trick the people into believing that they share their values while in reality serving the interests of special interests who lobby in Washington, D.C.